Jim from Come Play With Us, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing Agemonia, which is a new adventure game. It comes in a giant box and has overproduced components. um, if you want an overview of the game, I've got a playthrough on my channel in the show notes below, so please go review those if you want to see how this game plays. I won't be doing an overview of the game in this video. So let's start. Let's start with components for this one. So I've got the basic edition. I bought this at retail. Came in a core box. I'm not sure if it's general retail availability, but my online store that I ordered from had a base box, and it comes without the minis. So it comes with you get minis for the characters. They're quite nice. The standard kind of like minis, and then the monsters and everything are standees, and they're decent standees. And if you watch my channel, you'll know that I prefer standees over miniatures for the most part, as I don't paint miniatures, so I'm fine with the standees, and I think it cuts down on the costs, for the game. And this is already a really expensive game, so it's another $100 if you want to buy the standees or the miniatures for the game. The other components. So there are deluxe editions of everything. So I've got the standard one. These chips that you use in the game, they're just cardboard in my edition. I think they're poker chips in the deluxe edition. I think that's totally unnecessary. I don't know why these would need to be poker chips. I mean, I guess you stack them and flip them and stuff, but the cardboard ones work fine. I have no wish to have the poker ones. But all the components are, even in this edition, are top notch. Even though this isn't a deluxe edition of the game, the art and illustration is really well done. I really like all this really vibrant art and colorful. I really like it. Another thing about this game is it's not really a dark game. I mean, there's dark themes and stuff in this, but it's also like everything's really bright and vibrant. So if you look in the scenario book, if you look at the illustrations and stuff, they're all really colorful, nice and bright. It's not super dark, and I like that's a nice change, all this bright colors and stuff. It really brings out the world. So I really do like the art in this game, and the components are quite nice. The books are all really well done. The only complaint I really have for the components for this game would be the rule book. Now, all the rules are in here, and you can eventually find everything you need in this book. But there's no index in the back, and then all you've got is a table of contents. And even that's not great. I find there's a lot of little rules in this game. For the most part, the game mechanics are pretty straightforward, but I mean, there's still this is the rules reference, and there's still like 56 pages in here. And I'm quite often flipping here for like little rules, like to see what a keyword means or some traits on an item or anything, how something works. And I mean, there's a bit of a reference on the back here, so it tells you, kind of like what types of cards there are, and then it's got a page reference to those things and the tokens. So there's a bit of it, but I would have preferred an index. I'm finding this is not good enough, and I spent a lot of time flipping back and forth through the rules. So that's probably my only complaint. That could have been done better. But I mean, the rules are all in there for the most part. I haven't found too many cases where I didn't, couldn't find a defined rule. There's been a couple cases, especially in the scenarios where something comes up and it's like, I wonder if I can do this. But I mean, it's your game, so I find, especially in games like this, it's fine if you can't find a definitive rule, just to play the way that feels like how it should work. And I mean, it's your game. If that's what makes it fun for you, do it that way. It's supposed to be fun. It's not doesn't have to be exactly as intended by the developers. Yeah, so the cards are good quality. As you can see here, I have I'm a chronic sleever, so just take this into perspective. The card quality is good enough that I don't think you need to sleeve it. There, it's good thick cardstock. These will hold up over time. But if you want to sleeve something, I would say what I've done is I've sleeved these initiative cards. These get shuffled quite a bit in the game, and you're flipping these every round when you're playing. So those are the initiative decks. So I've sleeved those, and I've sleeved this Fate deck. This has a timer in the game, and you're also shuffling this quite a bit. And then there's also an injury card deck that you draw from, and I've sleeved that one as well. But besides those things, and I've sleeved a couple of the reference card that you handle quite a bit. But that's it. I wouldn't, if I was to recommend to anybody, I wouldn't bother sleeving the items because they just kind of sit on the table, or any of the, especially not the story cards, because you see those once, during the scenario, and that's it. So it doesn't seem like cost effective to sleeve everything in this game. And plus, I'd be worried the story cards just fit in the box. So I think if you sleeved everything, it might not fit in the box properly. Yeah, and then I guess the last thing I'd probably want to talk about components wise is why the heck this game is so big. If you watch my unboxing video, this game is huge, but I have a sneaking suspicion if you took out all the game trays, that you could, because the game trays, half of them are empty or half empty. I think you could squeeze this down to, the box, at least, kind of like a Massive Darkness or a Simon sized box, or it seems to have the similar amount of components as something like Sleeping Gods. I don't think it needs to be this giant Gloomhaven sized box. So I'm not really understanding why they went with this big box. I mean, I guess with the game trays, it's necessary, but the game trays also seem kind of unnecessary. I think, I appreciate the game trays, but I think I would have kept the game trays. The ones you use the most, really, to me, are the ones that hold the hero components, especially for your campaign, to be able to put everything for your hero that you're playing in a box, and it's self-contained. I think that's really awesome, and that works really well. Besides that, maybe one other game tray for some of the components. I don't think they're being used super effectively beyond that, and I would appreciate not having to store another giant Gloomhaven sized box, for a game like this, because they've there's no tiles like in Gloomhaven for the maps. I mean, the maps are all in this book here, so when you're playing, you just open up to the scenario, you slap this down, and you're ready to go, which is awesome, but also kind of defeats the purpose of needing a giant box to put it all in. Talk a bit about the mechanics for this game. So the main mechanic in the gameplay itself is this action selection mechanic. So every turn, before, at the beginning of the round, each character is going to pick one of, at the start, you're going to start with, if you're starting at the tutorial, you'll have 3 and then 4, but if you're in the regular game, you start with 4, and then as you level up, each time you level, you're going to get a new action. So by the time you're fully leveled, you'll have 8 actions to choose from, and then you pick these as you level up. So you'll actually have different actions to pick. You don't actually have enough room to play to select all the actions that you have access to. So before every scenario, you're gonna have to pick which actions you want to do during that scenario, and then every round you're gonna pick one of those actions to do. I think this works fairly well for the most part. It's very simple. I like that about it, and it works. It's nice and clean. It works pretty well. The only thing about that I would say from mechanics wise is it seems like most of the time you're just doing one action, this maneuver, one action. They're either doing the extra maneuver or one of your attacks. So yeah, I don't. It's weird. I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of, I'll say it's kind of okay. It's not the super awesome best mechanic ever in a dungeon crawl type game, but it's it's also not the worst. I don't think. I think it's fine. It's nice and clean. It keeps the game simple and straightforward, and the turns moving quickly. So I'd say it's decent. I like it. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. The other thing that I really like about this game mechanics wise is how, and this has kind of been done in some games. I think the last place that did it as well as this, so maybe a bit more dynamic, was Swords and Sorcery, which is also one of my favorite dungeon crawly type games. But in Swords and Sorcery, of course, you have map tiles and you have to set up the scenario and everything. Here, everything's pre-printed on these map tiles, and this is a tutorial, so I hope I'm not really spoiling anything here. But on these map tiles, you have these sections that will have a letter and a number that gives you a range, and then when your character gets within range of that letter, the letter is a reference to a story card that you read, and then on those story cards, you'll have actions that you can do to flip the story card, or a test or something that allows you to flip the story card, and then something will happen. These things often change how the dungeon is laid out. So like walls can go missing, or new routes can be discovered, and things like that. I think it makes I think this is an ingenious system. Actually, it's the best kind of event-based dungeon crawl system I've seen in a game. It's very clean and smooth, works very well. It makes the game very dynamic. You can have that explore aspect to the game. Because you're going to see you think you're going to see the whole map at the beginning of the game, like most of these things do, but things can get revealed by these story cards. Sometimes you flip them and they're portions of the map, and you overlay them. And it changes the map up, and it makes for a more dynamic map, while at the same time keeping the setup really simple, and the scenarios run very simple, like low complexity, and I don't have to have a million pieces and dig through tiles and stuff like that. So 10 out of 10 for that mechanic. I really like that. I think every game from this step forward, these kind of games should copy that in some way, or maybe improve on it, other things. But I think that's one of the big innovations in this game that really stands out. The combat in this game, I would say the combat in this game is nothing really to write home about. It's functional, it works well. I think for this game, it's simple and streamlined, and I think that's fine. This game really doesn't focus on combat, so I like how it's not overly complicated, like something like Gloomhaven, where basically the general focus of the entire game is the combat and the tactical combat. If that's what you're looking for in a dungeon crawl adventure game, then you're not going to find that here. I mean, it's still interesting, but it's very simple and streamlined, and really that's not the focus of this game. The focus of this game is story. They're focusing on really good scenario construction, and a lot of times you're not fighting at all. You're trying to the monster. There's usually monsters in the map. A lot of times they're just obstacles on the map, and you're trying to get around them, avoid them. You can attack them if you want. There's multiple ways to solve each of these scenarios, but this game is definitely not. If you just go in there and bash enemies, you're not going to do well at this game. This is not what this game's about. And then in seeing that, like, the combat in this is fine. I mean, it serves its purpose, and I think it's decent. I mean, the enemies, everything triggers off this really good initiative system. I think I like this initiative system best out of all the dungeon crawls I've played. I'd say probably this is the best initiative system I've seen yet. Way better than ones where, like, you throw in a chip for everybody and randomly pick out, and that guy goes first. No, the way the initiative system is kind of tied to your actions in this game. Each action has a color that corresponds to it, and the monsters will have a color that corresponds to them, and then you draw the initiative, and then each card will show which action goes first, right? Depending on the action you picked. So if I picked, in case of this card, if I picked a blue action, then I would go first. The monsters have their own kind of triggers, so it will tell you, like, if the player, character, or monster, and then the color action. And then there's tendencies. So red tends to be the faster actions that go first, whereas I think green is the slow action, and blue's kind of somewhere in the middle. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes red will be at the bottom, like in this case of this card. And then there's also special things that can get triggered on the cards for advanced abilities and things like that. And as far as the monster system, the monsters will have 3 things that they do, plus some special things, and this initiative card will tell you which of those three things it's going to do. Movement rules and everything, as far as the AI is, they're pretty much the same. So it's not a really advanced AI system like something like Swords and Sorcery or Gloomhaven, but I think it's a nice streamlined system, and it does differentiate the monsters a little bit. But they, not super, but it's very simple and clean to operate and doesn't get in the way of the game. So I think I really like that. The attribute test system. Well, the other thing about I should mention about combat that's very different from other games is you don't when the monsters attack you, the monsters aren't rolling dice and you're defending or anything like that. Instead you roll these defense dice, so it'll give you an attribute test. Basically, you have these attributes on the board, and it'll say the monster's attack will you need to do a this physical attribute test against that, and then you look that up, and that's how many dice you roll, and it'll say it's a 3, which means it's hitting you for 3, and then you're trying to roll shields to block that damage. Very simple, but kind of unique in a way, because you're actually not rolling for the monster. Monster just hits the same to everybody, and it's just how much of it can you block. And then when you're attacking, the monsters don't defend your attacks either. They might have a shield or something that soaks up some of the damage, but you're just rolling these dice and then adding weapons modifiers depending on what weapon you're using. And then these dice are also really interesting. They're used for combat and for the tests, the attribute tests, and they have no failures on them. They're all successes. So it's just how good you're going to succeed. So there's a 1 success, a 2 success, a crit, so you got an exploding die thing where you get to roll extra die, and then it has this really interesting one, die face, where you can, where this is, I guess, the miss, but you can spend you can fatigue your chips here by spending them to get 1 or 2 successes on this. So these can be really good, but they just burn through your chips. So I really like that system. It's the combat and the attribute tests are pretty similar. I mean, the combat you're using your actions, and the attribute tests you're using these attributes to see how many dice you roll, but otherwise the system works the same. With the attribute test, you're just trying to meet or exceed a certain value, and the combat you're just trying to kill the monsters. So yeah, those I really like all of that. I really love the way that story cards work in the trivia test. So it really makes for the game flows really smooth. It's fairly simple. The mechanics don't get away with the game, and they let you really get into the scenario, basically, in the story. The campaign part of this game, I do enjoy it. There's the city phase. So you have the city phase and the scenario phase. So in the city phase, you get to visit some locations. In the city, depending on what level you're at, the city levels up with you. And there's a bunch of locations in the city that you get to go to for services. So you can buy stuff, sell stuff, different services you can get. When you get to level 2, you get to pick a class for your character, and then you can also get a profession, which will give you this profession card, and you'll get a bit of a bonus on something depending on what you're doing. So that gives you some choices about how do you want to develop your character. It's not super complicated. Again, they kept everything pretty simple, but it's interesting enough. It allows you to vary up your characters a little bit. And the other thing is you get these books. You get a book for each character that has some backstory for that character. And then it also gives you a set of specific character actions that you get to do in the city. So each character has different city actions that they can do that will give you things. And those level up in the book as well as you level up. So I like that whole campaign system, how it works. Also, how you level up. I'm not quite sure I'm sold on how you level up. So everybody levels up at the same time, and it's basically the way it works is you have your scenarios, you get choices of scenarios to do. So at every level you'll have a certain number of scenarios that are available, and you can choose what order to do them in, and there's some that are optional, but then there are ones that give you an experience point, and you basically have to finish all the scenarios with the experience point to move up to the next level. That's kind of how it works. Um, so it is a bit on rails that way, but you do get to choose the order in which you want to do those in. And then, of course, there's the optional scenarios that you don't have to do. And then there's the arena scenarios that you can replay. I haven't tried one of those, so I can't really comment on how the arena scenarios work. But I mean, I guess that allows you to grind. Although I don't know why you would grind in this game, because there's no experience points. You don't get experience points for monsters or anything like that. To like I said, you just have to finish the scenario. You don't even have to succeed at the scenario. It's got a fail forward system, so you just have to do the scenario, and then you'll level up. The only thing you could get out of grinding, I guess, is money and items. Although I don't, a lot of times I haven't, in the scenarios I've done, you haven't really gotten a lot of items. I've only gotten a couple. So usually the enemies do drop stuff at the levels I'm at. They're just dropping a little bit of money. So it's, I don't see how you would grind much stuff in this. So, but I think it's functional. I think the campaign works okay, and I think there's enough choices in here to make it interesting, even though it's not fully open world like something like Sleeping Gods. It's more like a Gloomhaven type campaign system or scenario system. So that's how that works. And then they also have this faction. They have factions in the game, kind of competing factions. So there's 10 factions in all, but they're pairs of 2, and so each faction has kind of like an anti-faction, and if you go too hard into one side of that, then you can't progress on the other one anymore. So you kind of got to choose which factions you want to ally with that way, and then you'll get bonuses and stuff as you go in. Yeah, so I'm only at level 2 right now, so that's as far as I can comment on the campaign. Maybe I'll do another quick video, full campaign review when I finish it to say how the whole thing went. But for the most part, I like how the campaign system works. The leveling up is fine. I like that there's not really any grind in this game, and I think it gives you enough character progression choices to keep it interesting. And all the characters are very different. They're not really the typical tropes. So there's some interesting new characters. Like I'm playing Denny here, and I've chosen her witch class. So I'm going kind of down a witch path, and with Torax here, I'm kind of going more of a tanky kind of guy. But he has telekinesis, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I like all that. The other thing I want to comment on is there's a free app, companion app, to download, which I've tried out, and I think it works really well. I'm not using it for everything, but many reviewers have commented on the faction mat here. I pull this out here. So you have this faction mat here, and in the game they want you to put stickers on this. And that's pretty much the only kind of like legacy kind of component in here, and I don't know why you'd want to ruin this for that. So if you don't want to put stickers on here, download the companion app. The companion app tracks everything, including your faction progression, so you don't have to mess up this board. And then I guess the other legacy, there's these stickers, like as you progress on the professions and the classes here, there's these stickers you put on here to mark your progression. I of course just sleeve these, and then I stick the stickers on the sleeves, and then, so that doesn't wreck the cards, so that's fine. Okay, so what don't I like about this game, or what can I not see others not liking about this game? I've already mentioned kind of one of them. The rulebook is a bit hard to parse or to find stuff in. I'm finding anyways, and I'm often flipping through it, trying to find the right rules. So that could have used an index. Otherwise, the rules are written fine. But yeah, I could have used an index to search for. Maybe that's solved by having a PDF version that you can search. The box being overly big for what I think the game is. I think they could have got it into a much smaller box, got rid of some of those game trays. I think it's a little overproduced in that aspect. The fact that you have all this big action selection, but most of the time you're just using the extra maneuver, like 80% of the scenario, because like I said, the scenarios aren't really combat focused, which is a strength that I'll talk about in my likes. But because they're not combat focused, most of the time you're just going to be moving around, and so you want this extra maneuver, which basically lets you move twice or move and heal or something like that. So the fact that you have all these actions, most of the time you're only using the same one all the time. So yeah, that's a little disappointing. And you know, it's simple, but yeah, so a little disappointing in that factor. And the only other thing that I get frustrated with sometimes is, you know, it's the usual thing with these kind of games. It's the luck factor. The dice can sometimes go against you. That's pretty normal. But I find also this timer thing and with the initiative thing, if the cards just sometimes don't go your way, you know, you'll draw you know, depending on the kind of, sometimes like with these timers, you could draw these fives early and not the twos or ones, and then you know that will speed up your scenario. So you'll have to do the scenario really fast instead of having you know a regular amount of time, because so that gives you kind of a variable amount of time on when you know how fast you have to do the scenario. So that can work against you sometime if you're unlucky, and then of course these initiative cards can work against you because you know there's these extra maneuver cards that will give you an extra bonus versus the ones that give the monsters an extra bonus, and you know they could just come up badly. Or sometimes all the monsters, like this one, all the monsters go first before you can get to go. Um, yeah, so sometimes those, you know, there's a bit of a luck factor with all those the dice and these two decks that can make a scenario go really bad on you, and you know you don't really have much control over it. But again, you can fail forward with all these scenarios, but the fail forward can snowball on you too, because you know the way the fail forward works is you get through the scenario, you still get the experience for it, you get to keep any stuff you found, but there'll be some sort of penalty that you know that will slow you down for the next scenario, and that can kind of snowball. Okay, what do I like about this game? So you know I've talked about a lot of things I don't like, but I really do love this game. I think the scenario design in this game is top notch, and that is where the strengths are. I play a lot of these adventure games, and I've been kind of searching for that one game that has the right balance of combat, you know, open world and adventure. And I think this is it. This is the closest I've seen to that game that I've been looking for, you know, ever. So Gloomhaven I thought would be that game, but I found, and I love Gloomhaven. I love the combat system. It's really puzzly, the tactical and everything, but it lacks in the story and the adventure. Now I've not tried Frosthaven yet. I've heard that you know adds a bit more story, so maybe they've helped that. But there's still a big focus, you know, on the tactical combat, and the scenarios are really long in that. And I find it's just bounced way too far combat. I mean, then you've got something like Sleeping Gods and you know Seventh Continent or Seventh Citadel. They lean more towards the adventure exploring side, which I love, but you know there's not as much combat in those. Sleeping Gods, it gets close to the right balance, but I think it's still a little too balanced on the adventure side. I think they hit the sweet spot with this game. I mean, I love the scenarios. You know, some I don't love all the scenarios. I've hit scenarios that I don't like. I mean, that's you're gonna get that with a scenario-based game. There'll be some, you know, scenarios that are better than others, but I mean, even the three, like they call them tutorial missions, they were excellent. Like they're don't skip the tutorials in this game. Like the tutorials are really enjoyable, really fun. They do different things, and I really enjoyed those tutorials. And I came out of that going like, if this is the tutorials, what's the rest of the game going to be like? And it, you know, they knocked this out of the park. And that's the real strength of this game. Everything else is window dressing. It's those scenarios, the fact that it's not all about combat. Yeah, there's combat in there, and there's enough to scratch that itch, but it's mostly about searching around and seeing what happens. And you know, there's clever multiple ways to beat each scenario. You know, they reward cleverness and stuff like that. So yeah, I think if you're looking for an adventure type game that's not all about combat, you know, that has some puzzly aspects a little bit, and some nice story, and this one really hits that. It's right down the middle, and you know, like I said, it just hits that sweet spot, and it has a right balance of everything. I feel. And yeah, I've already mentioned about the mechanics and stuff. You know, I love the event system in this. I like the simple mechanics. The writing is really good. The art is really good. I just find that I want to continually come back and play. I mean, I've had this game a week and I played it 7 or 8 times already. And the other nice thing is they have three kind of levels of scenarios. So they have they have short, medium, and long. I've not seen a long one yet, but yeah, I played short and medium, so that's nice that they have and they tell you on the scenario whether it's going to be short or medium or long, and so you can decide that at your session. If you're feeling like a short session, then you can do a shorter one. And the shorter ones, kind of on these one pager kind of ones, and then they have actual like big maps um, for the bigger ones. So yeah, that's really nice variety, and that they let you know so that you can kind of plan your play session around that. Yeah. So final thoughts on this one. Really tough coming up with a score with this. I've got to compare it to the other games in this category that I have. I mean, gave Sleeping God a 9, and I believe I gave Seventh Continent a 9 too. And you know what? I like this game better. This is my favorite adventure game right now out of my entire collection. I don't think it's a perfect 10 though, so I'm gonna give this a 9.5. I think it's really excellent. The one thing I wish they'd bring the price down. Like I said, if they brought the box size down and streamline some of the components a bit, this could be like right now in Canadian it's running $200 Canadian. Um, I don't see why this one couldn't be more in the $120 range. Would make it more affordable and let more people play it because I don't think this one needs to be that expensive. But still, I love that I have this. I don't regret spending the money on it. It's a great, great game. Thank you for watching me as always. Until next time.